Welcome in, everybody. It is the On Texas Football Tuesday night live stream, live here on Texas Football on YouTube. And it's Tuesday. Hookem is from Damone. We're already in with that. Rod Babers, CJ Vogel, myself, Aaron Hogan, and we're off and running about 4 days out now, 5 days out to the biggest Texas home game since when? We want you guys to weigh in on that with the chats and the super chats. When have you been this excited about a Texas home game, this eager about what's coming up on Saturday and what the opportunity presents? You know, we can talk about the biggest games we remember, but when have you been on a Tuesday this fired up about a Texas home game? Not a bowl game, not a national championship game, not a conference championship game, an actual game at DKR. When have you been this excited about what's to come on Saturday night and the opportunity Texas has? Guys, good to see you. We're ready to go, coming off another dominant performance for the Longhorns. We'll get into some of the matchups and concerns for this game for Texas, playing the fifth-ranked team in the country, the Georgia Bulldogs. But in addition to CJ, how eager are fans for this game Saturday night, which we'll ask our audience tonight as they're viewing. But CJ, an eager game for Texas and the recruiting side, with one of the biggest recruiting weekends Texas may have ever had at DKR.
Yeah, 100%. Jerry Hamilton and I have north of 50 names right now, and that's just counting 5 stars and 4 stars alone. That's not counting some of those young cats, some area cats that Texas is going to work to get back on campus for this game. The list of 2025 prospects on campus. There's going to be 3 official visitors. Here we go. Thank you, Matthew, for pulling that up. This is a tremendous list of flip candidates, uncommitted candidates. Michael Terry, we've talked about him in the past, but Justice Terry coming in, the number 1 defensive lineman in the entire country, a guy that Texas really hadn't been, all too much involved with. But you see Texas go to Michigan. You see Texas win against Oklahoma. You see Texas ranked number 1 and looking like the best team in the country so far. And then you start to hear some from these out-of-state caliber 5-star guys saying, I wonder what's going on in Austin, Texas right now. I kind of want to see what the deal is. Oh, they're playing Georgia. Well, I'm from Georgia. Let me go see if they can compete with the quote unquote gold standard that is, the number 1 program in college football at the moment. And let me see if Texas is legit. That's how you get visits from a Justice Terry. That's how you get looks from Kevin Wynn, Joseph Mbachu, Walter Mathis. So I absolutely think that this is a tremendous list. Javion Hilson on campus, Joseph Mbachu again coming back to campus. And hey, it's not out of the picture yet that Riley Pettijohn and Texas aren't completely done. Obviously, he's committed to Ohio State at the moment, but these are 8 guys on the defensive side of the ball, with Michael Terry being the exception, that are just very, very talented, and Texas would absolutely welcome into the class. Set at 21 commits right now, a top 5 class. Jerry and I have talked about it today on the recruiting breakdown. The ceiling for this is probably 2 in the class. It could go as high as 1 potentially if Texas absolutely knocks it out of the park with the rest, but 2, 3 looking very likely. And of course, you saw the commits on the bottom of that list coming in. That 26 graphic, pretty stout as well. And again, going through it right quick. You start looking at some of the big bodies, Rod. The running back room will never be thin with Tashard Choice here at the University of Texas. The offensive lineman, John Turntine, Toa Katoa, Nick Robertson. It doesn't get much better than Adam Guthrie out of Ohio coming in. And, of course, Javian Osborne out of Forney, Amari Latimer out of Georgia. They're deep-sea fishing early. And I think that's the biggest change that you're seeing right now from 26 versus what we saw in 2025 is Texas has the luxury of pointing to a playoff appearance when these kids first got to high school and sustained success right now as the number 1 team in the country to say, okay, yeah, this is something that we can continue to have and continue to build with. And that visitors list, it shows about 11 guys. If you can read a little bit of those guys coming in and take a little screenshot of that, go Google where those kids are ranked in the big standings or big early rankings right now. To not have a guy like Kevin Ford or Bryce Perry right on this graphic just goes to talk about the depth that Texas is bringing in, because those are some tremendous talents right now early on, and they don't crack the top 15, if you will, in terms of highest rated players coming in.
Wow.
Without question, the biggest, most important recruiting event that this staff or any Texas staff has hosted here at Texas, and maybe ever. So I'm here for it. Texas is here for it. The staff is going to love it. And you can bet that DKR and the city of Austin are going to be rocking that weekend as everybody gets in to town for what's going to be a really special weekend on Saturday.
Can I ask you, CJ, what percentage of those guys are in state, not out of state, just ballparking, obviously, in your mind?
Yeah, normally I think for a game like this, you'd see it probably close to 90% in state. You probably have some commits coming in. Normally, that's the case. Right now, I think it's close to 70-30, and especially for the 26 class, because that's when you start to see Tyler Atkinson, the 5-star linebacker out of Georgia, one of the best players, regardless of classification, in the entire country. So it starts to pique some interest. Luke Waffley was on campus out of New Jersey earlier this year in the 26 class. Jamari Mack, Mari Latimer out of Louisiana and Georgia, respectfully. So Texas is going everywhere. And, of course, we've not yet even talked about the West Coast ties, because guess how many guys on the staff have ties out to the West Coast? That's Sarkisian, Chris Jackson, Jeff Banks, Johnny Nansen. Right now, Texas is putting a key emphasis on Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, and then going from there. That's different in terms of what they've been doing in the past, but it's certainly paying off right now. You have a commitment in 26 from Zalis Hicks, might classify to 2025, and obviously your quarterback down from Florida, Dia Bell. Texas is going everywhere to get the guys that they want, and they're doing so with great success early on.
It's called big game hunting, man. When you're number one in the country, coming off a year like you did last year, it's time to go big game hunting. I totally agree. Now you have essentially the arsenal, all right, and the resume right now to go big game hunting. And I love that. I don't know if you know how many are from Atlanta, but I love that they got a couple of guys from Georgia, and that Atlanta area, they're close to Georgia. I've talked about all the time, that metro area. It is the most fertile recruiting ground in terms of metro areas in the country. There's not a metro area yet, not even DFW, that's producing – DFW second, by the way. But they ain't producing NFL players at the rate that Atlanta metro area is. And I think Sark with the short choice, Kenny Baker, they want a piece of that. And if you beat Georgia, that means you get to go into Atlanta with a whole new swagger. And you got a whole new kind of sales pitch to those young guys in Atlanta when you beat Georgia.
Well, think about this, Rod, to your point right there. The opportunity to, if you were to win this game and set yourself up for a run to the SEC championship game, which is in Atlanta, and then next year Texas plays at Georgia. Texas goes to Athens 1 year from now, the way the schedules will flip. So it's kind of a setup for the big picture to, plant the seeds now, which I know they're doing. But you win this game Saturday night, knowing that you could end up in Atlanta playing in a championship game. And then, again, back to Athens next year, because the schedule in 2025 is the same as 2024, just flip the home and road in the SEC. So the Longhorns will head to Gainesville, they'll head to Lexington, they'll head to Starkville, but they'll also head to Athens, Georgia next year for the first time, which would be an opportunity to what you're saying, to continue to get into that fertile recruiting ground, which that's where they want to be as the kind of it program. CJ, how important was it to, they don't control the TV, but I think we all kind of thought this was going to be a primetime game, 6:30 kind of deal. How important was it that it's a night game so those Friday night kids that are playing high school football can get on a plane and get here? They got to play their games Thursday or Friday night and then get here. It's an early game, 2:30, 11. Obviously, you're not going to make it. Big that it's the primetime night game so they can get into Austin.
Yeah, on top of that, I mean, you have to assume that probably 75% of the kids coming to campus this weekend have at least a 3-hour trip, right? Whether they're coming from Houston or Dallas, that's some time in the car. If they're flying, you have to get to the airport, take your flight, get out of the airport, find an Uber, and on a weekend like this, good luck, right? I think Uber drivers are going to make, almost double their salary this year because of F1 coming to town, Georgia's coming to town. Folks are going to need rides everywhere that they go. So it's going to take some time to get from point A to point B. This game being at 6:30 is huge because you get to see the campus, you get to see the city in the daylight. Rod, I know that's a little bit of one of those recruiting tactics. I forget which coach it was back up in Nebraska at the time, or even Iowa State. They wouldn't let kids fly in during the day because all they would see is cornfields and just a lot of boringness. Right?
Smart.
But with Texas, it's different. You get the city, you get the skyline, you get everything that involves the city of Austin. So you want to show that off. You want to utilize, as we talked with Stevie Lee yesterday, you want to showcase ACL. You want to showcase F1. You want to showcase the city being something that's more than just a college town or just, an extension, if you will. So that's going to be important. But more than that, you get to go see the dorms. You get to go see, the business school. You get to see Bevo Boulevard and the Ferris wheel and the music at Longhorn City Limits. That's a cool deal.
That is a cool deal.
Chris Del Conte's been able to build. So they've done a great job, and now they get to showcase that primetime under the lights. And I think it's the first marquee primetime game since that TCU game, if I'm not wrong, 2022, where Texas kind of laid an egg. So I might be wrong there, but I think you're going to see whoever was on that 22 squad coming back saying, all right, we're at home. We got to defend home turf. We got a lot of distractions here. Let's play our game. Let's get our fans up early. Let's find some points, and let's get rocking from there.
Yeah.
Well, and that's part of the reason, Rod, you hire a general manager like Brandon Harris, right? I mean, you build a staff that can handle all that stuff so that when you talk about what Brandon Harris does as the GM and all the advisors, there's going to, see just talking about Ubers for these kids. You're going to try to get them as many rides as you can so they're not trying to wait for an Uber, try to shuttle them as much as possible. All that logistics, all that stuff that goes on, that's when we talk about big-time college athletics right now, why you have that person in place where you don't want your coaching staff worried about any of that, right? They show up, they meet the players, they talk to the players. All that stuff needs to be handled over here so it's getting done at a high level. But at the same time, your focus is playing Georgia at 6:30.
Yep. And from all the reports and things that I have heard, Texas is, one of the most, I would say, thorough programs, meticulous when it comes to the details of recruiting visits and getting it right and making sure it is player specific, right? It's not just broad. Everybody's doing the same thing. See, I've heard about different guys. Oh, he's got this interest. All right, we'll show him this. He's interested in business management, or he's interested in, being a restaurateur or whatever it may be. Texas has specific different, options and different things on those recruiting visits for those young men to explore. So I know it's not official visits and all that kind of stuff now for everybody, but I think Texas has done a really good job of tailoring the experience for the players so they feel special. And from what I've heard, they've done a really good job of that. And that's when you have the resources like Texas, you can have a very expansive front office, and you can have which is basically what they have now. It's a front office that can take care of all those things and let Sark just focus on the mission at hand, which is go win the game. And then he still has duties though. I'm sure during the day you still got to go as a coach. You don't just get to hang out the team all day when you got that many big time recruits in town. I'm sure Sark wants to make sure that he shows them some love. So that's a pretty, with a game being a big game like that being so late, and it being the biggest recruiting weekend potentially in the history of the University of Texas, that is a lot on a coach throughout the day. I mean, that's just the reality of it. You're going to be multitasking all day until it's time to play the game.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, for Sarkisian, he has his plate full with everybody coming in, the game, whatever other distractions or obligation he has media-wise, but he's got 3 official visitors coming to town, right? And that's really important. Jonah Williams will be making his official visit. I mentioned it was Michael Terry. He already took his. But Jonah Williams coming in. Joseph Mbachu currently committed to Florida. Texas looking to flip him at the moment. And then Justice Terry, again, the defensive tackle, number 1 guy in the country that is taking his official visit this weekend. It was originally an unofficial. He flipped that to an official. So he'll get 3 days, right, of 48 hours on campus with the coaching staff, which also means that Sunday morning when you wake up and you're doing your goodbyes, you're going to go see Steve Sarkisian again. It's going to be so important that they come away with the victory because guess who's really leading the way right now for Justice Terry? It's Georgia and it's Auburn. So if you want to make a huge impact, you win that football game and you send them with a goodbye saying, this could be you.
Nice.
No question about it. It's a huge week and a huge game. We'll have those conversations throughout the course of the hour tonight. Guys, let's get some initial thoughts on the game itself. And I know, Rod, you'll do, as you always do, as good as anybody out there, the deep dive on what this game will be. But it does feel like, typically Georgia goes into these games with a, pretty large advantage in the trenches. That's why they've been so dominant for so long in college football. But, maybe not as much this time around. Kirby Smart has talked about how, they're, I was looking at the NCAA stats today. Georgia's 92nd in rushing yards in the country through 6 games. They're 92nd. Is that what I said? 92. They're in the 90s in rush yards per game. They're not as dominant up front. Tate Ratledge got hurt in that Kentucky game. They're not depth proof like they've been before because of the transfer portal and some suspensions they've had. Then Texas has obviously a really good offensive line, a really balanced team. What are your initial overview thoughts of this game? It's clearly the best quarterback Texas will have faced so far this year by a long shot.
Yep.
What's your overall feel of this game on a Tuesday?
Yeah, it is interesting, right? We know what Georgia is, and we know what Georgia has been, essentially, other than them and Alabama have been the standard of college football the last 5 or 6 years. But I say this about dynasties all the time, and that's what, Georgia's kind of in the midst of a dynastic run. When you're on top for so long, you can start to see the cracks after a while. Maybe they were there the whole time, or maybe as the decay and deterioration sets in after being on top for so long, naturally you start to see the cracks. The Kansas City Chiefs are right there right now. They're trying to three-peat in the NFL, and you can tell they're undefeated, but it looks very flawed, right? You see a lot of cracks. Period. Look at Georgia right now. Georgia, you can see the undisciplined culture, whether you're talking about the penalties, they get a lot of penalties, or you're talking about the off the field issues they've had with guys getting in trouble and, guys, breaking obviously the team, violating team rules and things of that nature. So they've had a lot of issues. I just think that's because they're at the tail end of their dynastic run. Maybe Kirby Smart will reinvent it. Maybe he won't, whatever. But I just think that's what they're dealing with. That's why they look very flawed, and it's not the same impenetrable, formidable Georgia team that they've been at the peak of this run. So yeah, they look beatable, but it's still Georgia. It's definitely the best test and the biggest test Texas had. And I think what worries me, I think Texas is just a better team, period. So I'll throw that out there. I'll preface everything with saying Texas is a better team. But they haven't faced a really good quarterback yet. They just haven't. Half the teams that Texas faced, they struggle with the forward pass. Like literally. They literally struggle throwing forward pass. No, I'm not joking. Y'all know that. And Michigan struggled with the forward pass. Oklahoma's like guys, Oklahoma is one of the worst offenses in college football right now. Like, no joke. They're
126 now, Rod. 126. Yeah. The best quarterback they've faced so far by statistic is the kid McCown at UTSA.
Yes, and as we know,
they don't have any blocking. They don't have any offensive line.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Texas is the best defense in the country right now. I have used the word elite to describe them, but we can be truthful here because we're family and we're talking. They face some dog-ish quarterbacks and offenses, at least half of them. All right. So are they legit? Of course they are legit. But this is the test. So far they have an open book test so far. This is the midterm. All right. So now we'll see, because you got a quarterback that is an NFL quarterback. He'll be a first round pick. And what I like about watching Carson Beck is his ability to maneuver in the pocket. I was talking to Derek Johnson about this, and he said what he likes about him is his ability to manipulate defenders with his eyes. He said he would have me all over the place because he's looking over here and then boom, progression comes back. And sometimes it's not even progressions for him. He's just moving defenders because he's a savvy veteran quarterback with the ability to do that. And quarterbacks who can buy themselves a little bit of time in the pocket, they can make some plays downfield. Texas has not been challenged. Now, this is not a prolific passing offense. They're not LSU, Joe Burrow's LSU Tigers. No, they're not at all. But they do have athletes, like some high caliber athletes on the outside. And if they just ask them, run double moves, hey, run, we're going to take them deep with some non-routes. If they have one-on-ones, we haven't, even though Texas has passed every test, haven't seen them up against these type of athletes in those situations yet. And if I'm Georgia, I'm challenging Texas based on what I saw last year, because I just don't think you've actually been up against a high caliber passing quarterback and a high caliber athletes at the wide receiver position. So I think they're going to challenge Texas in that way. I think they'll do it early. I think Texas will pass that test, but you never know what could happen. They're going to test Texas with the vertical passing game, and we just haven't seen Texas really be challenged in that manner just yet.
Yeah, the one thing I kind of want to put some hesitancy on is we saw Mississippi State. They threw the ball deep 4 times. They took deep shots immediately twice. when Gavin Holmes was on the field. I don't know if that was a part of their game plan. Maybe they didn't think that they could move the ball against Jahdae Barron and Randy Muhammad. But 2 of those 4 times that they threw the ball beyond 25 yards down the field, it was only in about 15 snaps for Gavin Holmes. They said, okay, 9's on the field. Let's find out what we can do. One of them was incomplete because of the sun. The other one was just a bad throw, bad reaction to the football. But I think that's going to be a common theme this year is when 7 or 5 are not on the field, that's when they say, okay, let's see what we can do. And, of course, teams have had looks this year to complete deep passes. They've obviously not had much success as we look at it right now. Texas has allowed the fewest plays over 20 yards defensively by a pretty significant margin. Yep. So that, to me, when you talk about Texas not playing elite offenses, I agree. I mean, these dogs, to your point, Rod, they've been pretty bad, all of them. Yeah. But you've seen Texas have sound communication. They've not had any busts. They've been tremendous at rallying to the football, and they're opportunistic in creating turnovers. If that's what we're describing this Texas defense as, I don't know what more you want. I know, again, you can point to, talent. Who have they played? Well, Georgia allowed 31 to Mississippi State. Alabama allowed 40 to Vanderbilt. These teams that are supposed to be just as good or as talented defensively as Texas, they've all had busts. They've all had big games allowed by opposing offenses. Not Texas, right? So that's where I find, confidence in the Longhorn defenses. Listen, you can say what you want about the talent, but hey, other less talented teams have scored against other really good defenses, and Texas is still sitting here averaging less than a touchdown per game allowed to opponents. I think you take that if you're a Texas fan. If you're a fan of another team, I think you can respect what Texas has done so far, despite who they've played, because you've not seen busts. You've not seen big yards on the ground. Yeah. It's been very sound.
Yeah, well, 1 bust in 6 games. That was against UTSA on a 67-yard run. Other than that, they're garbage time touchdowns. And then this week, the culture of Texas decided to go back on the field to prevent a garbage time Oklahoma touchdown in a game that was well decided. I thought that was pretty indicative of where this team is right now. They were going to PK and saying, hey, put us back in. We're going in. They aren't getting in the end zone here because Oklahoma gained 70 of their 100 or 239 total yards on that last drive. And for the first time, they didn't get to the red zone, even though they ran 22 plays in Texas territory in the first quarter. They didn't actually reach the actual red zone until 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And the Texas starter said, okay, we're going back in. We are letting this happen. I know, Rod, you as a proud Longhorn defender, got to love that. And I would also say that Kirby Smart in his last 3 true road games on the road against the top 10 team, 2017 Auburn gave up 40 and lost. Number 2 Alabama in 2020 gave up 41 and lost. And then earlier this year at number 4 Alabama gave up 41 and lost. So it's a true actual road game against a top 5 team. And maybe, as Kirby Smart said this week, the best team they played this year and maybe in a couple years as far as complete team. That's what Texas has to attack. But I think your point, Rod, is very well said. Carson Beck's a real good player. I mean, he's a real good player, and he's going to push the ball down the field. He's going to threaten Texas in ways they haven't been threatened. I do like the idea, Rod, that he doesn't have really the legs component. He's not dual threat. He's more Michael Penix than he would be, a dual threat quarterback where can he stand in the pocket and shred, but does he have Rome Odunze and does he have Jalen Polk and all these great receivers? That becomes the question. You feel pretty good about it from Texas' side, but Carson Beck is a really good player, and Kirby Smart has a really good coaching staff, and they're champions. I mean, they know how to win games. Yep,
and that's another thing too. I mean, that's this becomes a game that comes down to the fourth quarter. Texas hasn't really had that opportunity yet to be challenged, right? To show their clutch gene. That's something that if it comes down to that, I look forward to it. I think the spread on this game will look like 3 points or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I think this game comes down to ultimately the lines of scrimmage for Texas. All right, what kind of advantage, who wins the lines of scrimmage on either side. And I think ultimately the lines of scrimmage to me is about pass protection because both of the Texas running game found a new kind of identity versus Oklahoma. So maybe Texas running game is starting to ascend. It's starting to find its groove. Maybe that's something they'll continue versus Georgia. Georgia's rush defense is pretty damn stout, though. And so I think it's got to be a game where Texas leads with the pass. That is their identity, guys. Now it's great they can go win a game with defense and run game, but the identity of this offense is its passing game. The deep room at wide receivers, one of the best in the country, the best quarterback room in the country, arguably one of the two best tackle combinations potentially now in the country with Cam Williams and Kelvin Banks, the way they're playing in your pass protection. That's really the strength and identity. And against Georgia, I still think Sark's you're going to lead the way with the passing game. So pass protection, of course, for them as well with Georgia. Can you get to Carson Beck before he's able to make plays down the field? Because I think that's how you're going to beat Texas. You're not going to beat Texas, dinking and dunking. Texas tackles too well. They're too buttoned up now. They're too disciplined on defense. I believe that I'm seeing on film, because I agree with CJ. That is just improvement overall. You can tell the communication has improved. There are no coverage busts. There's no lack of focus. These guys the leverage has improved. You can tell alignment assignment beforehand. They're making pre-snap reads, and they're actually situationally just more aware overall. That's real. The only way I think Texas is going to get beat is like Mac Brown. You say that guy's on scholarship too. That's a one-on-one situation. I'm throwing it deep, my guy on your guy, and I got an NFL quarterback throwing it. Let's see who wins. And those are kind of your Vegas, just kind of 50-50 plays, baby. Let's just go. If you're in great position, yes, as a corner, but sometimes they make great contested catches too. I like that about that Georgia group. They're contested catch group of wide receivers. They go fight for footballs. So just because you got a guy covered don't mean you always just assume that he's not going to go make a play on it. So they got those kind of athletes. To me, it's only about who protects their quarterback better. And I think ultimately which quarterback plays better, that's who's going to win the game, in my opinion.
And avoids turnovers. And CJ, we're going to talk. Rod's going to tell about Hargrove Roofing here in a moment, one of our great Tuesday night partners. But to Rod's point about the improvement on the defense, no matter who you're playing, Vernon Broughton's having one of those senior seasons like we've seen the last couple of years, right? I mean, he's having you had a great game. His 2 SEC games, he's been lights out. On our radio show this morning, we talked to Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl. They've got Vernon Broughton now as a guy they're watching and want to bring in Mobile. Which who would have thought that a couple of years ago, even at the start of the year? And those are another guy. And then to Rod's point about the connection between the back end and the front end, I mean, Johnny Nansen and PK are working great, tying it together. And we're not seeing the dramatic secondary rotations like we saw there. It's pretty much the same guys out there. Now, unfortunately, Derek Williams is hurt, but you've got Makuba and Jelani McDonald now that can step in and play. Jalen Gilbo, they're keeping the same guys. And to Rod's point, I remember for months and months of the last year, that they're rotating guys. They don't have good chemistry, who's in, who's out, the communication. And then they have these 2 linebackers now, Anthony Hill and Leonga Lafau, who are really good. They might be the best 2 young linebackers Texas had in a long, long time. That's why I think we're seeing the numbers we're seeing. They're still playing very good up front. Now they're more tied in the back with more of a cohesive unit of talented back end players. And you got these 2 young linebackers along with David Benda that can really make plays.
Yeah, it's really special watching the depth of, thinking what this team is, and then you see a young cat get his opportunity and you say, wait a minute, there's a higher ceiling here. And I think we might even be seeing that a little bit with a Trey Wisner at running back. We're seeing it right now with Leonga Lafau at linebacker. I think we might get an opportunity to see what JJR has, in his bag this week, unfortunately, because of the injury to Derek Williams. But we saw 20 snaps from Jordan Johnson-Rubel. We saw 47 from Jelani McDonald. These younger guys kind of itching to get their feet wet in big-time football games will certainly have their opportunity this weekend against Georgia. And to your point, Aaron, I've been very high on Leon Lafau since he stepped foot on campus. I said last year there's probably a chance that he starts week 1 this year, and obviously he didn't. But I think we're seeing this going into week 8 that the staff's starting to trust him a little bit more. And you look at his game log and you look at that stat sheet from each individual game and you say, okay, hold on. He's got a sack or a tackle for loss or a safety in just about every single game that he's played in so far. Let's see what else he can do. And Sarkisian mentioned that Monday in his press conference, said, with Lafau on the field, it allows for Anthony Hill to be freed up to do a lot more. And I think Texas fans everywhere would say, yeah, free up Anthony Hill. Let's see what he can do. Because, again, he was just named the Walter Camp Defensive Player of the Year or week for that butt whooping he laid against Oklahoma. So I'm very encouraged by that. Of course, David Benda is going to be a key piece of this defense moving forward because that speed, that sideline-to-sideline speed that he's able to display on the field, it frees up and it saves so much for the Longhorns in that run game. So Texas – wealth of riches, a lot of depth right now. You got to like that, and it's going to pay off in a game like this, especially when you start looking at this Georgia injury report, which will officially be released tomorrow night around 7 p.m. But they're dealing with some injuries right now. Smael Mondon, their starting linebacker, one of the best linebackers in the entire country, not expected to play this weekend. It was just reported. So that's a big, big loss. Best coverage guy, big guy over the middle right now, Smael Mondon. Take a look at him. He's one of the best guys defensively in the entire SEC. That's a significant loss for Georgia. Not expected to play against Texas this weekend.
Yeah, that's the flip of that coin, Rod. With to your point, Texas hadn't been in a fourth quarter battle yet. I mean, that just hasn't happened. They've been so dominating. Georgia's been in some dogfights, but those dogfights against Kentucky, Alabama, even Mississippi State last week was closer than people thought. They've taken some injuries. They've taken their starters have had to play a lot of reps and a lot of snaps, and they're not as deep as they've been. So, that could be, play both sides. We'll pick up this conversation, Rod. Tell them about Hargrove Roofing. You want to know who's on your roof, and you want a Longhorn on your roof when it comes time, right?
Yes, sir. If you can get our friends at Hargrove Roofing on your roof, now's a great time to do it. They're actually offering a free roof inspection right now, so you can check them out at HargroveRoofing.com. They have offices all over Louisiana, Arkansas, and, of course, the great state of Texas, including Austin, Texas, home of the Texas Longhorns. Hargrove Roofing will take care of all of your roofing needs. Plus, as we mentioned, they are a Longhorn-friendly company with partners like lifetime Longhorn Bert Arbin and lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee, who comes on the winning drive on Mondays, courtesy of our good friends at Hargrove Roofing. They're the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. So give them a call today, 512-645-3202, or visit them online at HargroveRoofing.com. Know who's on your roof. And they're offering, like I said, a free roof inspection. So if you're a little bit uncertain about what's happening with your roof right now, or it's been a while, or you haven't even had a new roof put on your house, give our friends at Hargrove Roofing a call, and they'll educate you and also check out your roof absolutely free. Free 99. Can't beat that price. HargroveRoofing.com.
Free 99. All right, guys. Again, we'll take your super chats, your chats. You're as excited about this game since when? As far as the expectation, the excitement level. I mean, gosh, you go back to Ohio State 2006, I think, coming in when they were top 5 both. I mean, you got to go back a bit for a game at DKR that had this much hype. So this is our toughest game yet coming. Do you think Sark tightens up the lineup or relies so heavily on second and third stringers? From Scott McKissick. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that super chat. It's a good question. I think he's pretty comfortable with his depth chart guys, and to what CJ just said about Jelani McDonald and Jackson Rubel and these guys, that he feels like he can get the same quality and keep guys fresh for the biggest moments, because this might very well and probably should be a fourth quarter dogfight. To keep your ones and twos as fresh as possible, use those guys through the middle quarters if you're not seeing significant drop off. What say y'all?
Yeah, I like it a lot. Of course, we've seen Texas rotate in key situations, and so far, nothing has bit them so far. Against Michigan, we saw the number of rotational guys drop significantly, and I think even with a 32, 34, 33, whatever, 12 win it was for Texas, they kept that rotation pretty small. Even with that game out of hand towards the end, we've seen 25-plus players on defense for every single game. I think that they only rotated in about 19 or 20 for that Michigan game. So that's going to be something I look at again. Of course, you look at it in the sense that, would you like to have Colin Simmons and Trey Moore and Ethan Burke and Barron Sorrell on the field for the entire game? I sure would, right? That's who I look at to say, they keep these rotational small. You keep your star players on the field. You trust what they've got. And against Georgia, you know that they're going to be playing their best players. I know that depth is important. I know that getting a breather is going to be important, but you look ahead to the temperature this weekend as well. It's going to be mid-80s. It's going to be at night. It's going to feel like prime football weather.
Yeah.
Of course, keeping them fresh is going to be key, but it's not like you're going to be playing Colorado State at 2:30 in the afternoon at 100-degree weather at home. You're going to, at least I'm going to hope that they keep every single one of these starters on the field as long as they can go.
Yep, I agree with CJ. I think he's around the money. You tighten those rotations up. You got your guys that you trust and your best playmakers overall, and you want to make sure you give them as many reps as possible. Now, if you pull away from Georgia, great. Then you can go back to everybody, getting as much playing time as possible. But at this, I agree. In those big games, Michigan, I think, big games like that, if Oklahoma had presented a threat, I think it tightened up those rotations. And I think that's so I agree with CJ. CJ's got the numbers, but I think from the eye test, you see that too. More of those playmakers out there playing. But I will say this, more guys are earning reps on the field. right? Now, like Ryan Wingo didn't get a lot of reps versus Michigan, but now Ryan Wingo gets a lot of reps. I know because of the Bond injury, if he doesn't play, he'll get even more reps, but he's earned more trust of the coaches after a few more games. You just brought up Leon Lafau. He's earned more trust of the coaches. Got his first start versus Oklahoma. Who the hell gets that? His first start versus Oklahoma in the Texas OU game. That says, I won't say Derek Johnson might have got his first start in the Texas OU game, if I'm not mistaken, too. But yeah, I mean, I think some guys have earned more playing time with the coaches. So as you tighten up those rotations, there's still I think a deeper group, just because there are more guys now who have earned their way on the field.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you go over the plan and you play it as it feels and how you feel like you need to do. If your defense is playing great and getting Georgia off the field, you keep your ones going. If you're facing long drives, maybe you spell some guys. It's kind of a feel of the game. But I do think both of y'all are right that you'd like to have your best players on the field for the majority of the game. But if you start facing some 11, 12, 13 play drives, then all of a sudden maybe rest some guys and you trust the guys that you're going to bring in. Yep. In those spots. I think they're in good hands. And guys, let me mention, are you in good hands with your insurance coverage? And that's where our man Mark Saunders comes into play. He's a great Tuesday night sponsor every single week here on our On Texas Football channel. 35 years as a great insurance rep right here in Central Texas, Round Rock, Georgetown, Williamson County area, into Austin, Texas. So if you have needs, it's Mark Saunders every single time. Is all your stuff covered is the question, right? You want to make sure when you put your head on the pillow at night, you feel great about your Longhorns. You feel great about your stuff, your cars, your house, obviously, your vehicles. All of you, if you have a secondary house, a lake house of some kind, boats of some kind, are you in good hands? Texas alum Mark Saunders will make sure that you are. And all you have to do is give him a call in his office tomorrow, 218-8571. That's 218-8571, 35 years. And you're dealing with a lifetime Longhorn and a great partner with us here on the On Texas Football channel. You will be in good hands with Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders. Make sure you're fired up right there and getting that going. Hey, guys, game plans. Rod, we talk about big games. And, gosh, we watched last week. We had a great example of Dan Lanning, I think, saving some stuff for Ohio State for a big game that, maybe won that game for them. We know that there was a 12th man play late in the game. But I have it on pretty good authority from some folks who know that program pretty well, that for the first 4 or 5 games, they really weren't showing the deep ball much with Dillon Gabriel. They really weren't stretching the field much, almost intentionally. And then, exclusively dink and dunk and underneath stuff for Dillon Gabriel. And they get to the game against Ohio State, and all of a sudden, Evan Stewart, the A&M transfer, who had averaged about 3 catches, went off about 40 yards in each of the games leading up to it. All of a sudden, Evan Stewart blows up for 7 catches and 150 yards, and the deep ball is back into their arsenal. And, it's hard to imagine that a coach is thinking that big picture, that we're going to keep our big play game, our down the field game under wraps, but they needed it to beat Ohio State. And now that puts them in such an advantage position in this chess game of college football, with a very manageable schedule the rest of the way. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I know you get off on, Rod, and love the chess match of coaches. If you go back and chart Oregon for the first 5 games, they didn't throw the deep ball very much at all. And then against Ohio State, to a point where Ohio State's defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles, getting criticized that on the 3rd down play, they dropped 9 guys into coverage underneath. They dropped their whole D-line into coverage, expecting those underneath crossing routes. Yeah. And they went over the top for a touchdown right before the half. I mean, do we do this? I mean, do coaches go to these lengths to say, hey, this is the game I got to win. I can win these games doing this. I got to win these games to win championships.
Yes, they do. I don't know the specifics of every coach, but Sark has even admitted it now, because we know it happens. And Sark is such a kind of forthcoming, very upfront guy. He admitted that he placed certain plays during the training camp sessions for Michigan, and yet they were playing Colorado State first. Right? And coaches do that all the time. They won't admit it because you ain't supposed to be looking ahead. They did that all the time. Every player that I know, they'll give you an example of you working on something during the week. You're like, why are they working on that? That doesn't align or track with what I've watched on film. You guys don't run that. And then 3 weeks later, you go, oh, that's why we were working on this concept. That makes sense. Because, okay, I got it. You were looking ahead. Okay, I get it. And they do that. And of course, in the offseason, you circle those big games, right? Because these are the games that pretty much are going to determine your job security a lot of times with coaches. These are the big games that get you the contract extensions. These are the big games with the rivals. Ask Ryan Day. That'll get you fired no matter how many games you win. You circle the rival games, you circle the big games, and you go, all right, I'm putting in extra prep for these games. That ain't just going to be a weekly thing. I'm putting in prep in the offseason. I might bring in a consultant who's got previous history, coaching against that opponent to help give you some background and some game plan. So there's no doubt about it, man. Those big games, you spend extra time on them. And yeah, you're right. Some coaches are playing chess while other coaches are playing checkers. And I saw that about the 12th man on the field thing with the penalty. Oh man, Dan Lanning was in his bag for that game. So I would not doubt if he knew, this is the game we got to win. We win this game, we're in the driver's seat, baby. And that's what we want to be. So I don't doubt that. I think, to win big games, you got to break tendency. I've always said it. Like, that's because there's so much prep put into the big games because the coaches are prepping for big games in the offseason. They're putting in extra planning for the big games. As we just saw, even Sarko tell you, hey, for that Michigan game, yeah, we was actually doing some prep for it during the Colorado State weeks or during training camp before that. Yeah, so if they're going to over-prepare for it, you can make that work against them. All right, you can basically make that work. They're building everything, and their whole entire game plan is based on your tendencies, the trends they found, the patterns. And then you can make all those patterns and trends when they're dialed in on. You're like, well, I know they're dialed in on this. Just like you said, I know they're thinking on this down, third and such, whatever it is, down distance. They looked at it 80% of the time. We throw it underneath in this situation. So when they see it, they're going, all right, let's go. They're throwing it underneath. We ain't got to worry about it. Let's flood those underneath zones. Underneath, attack it. You guys attack it. And you go, hey, so as you see it and you see those guys flat foot read it, take them over the top. Let's go.
Yep.
And yeah, so I think that's just brilliant coaching. I love tendency breakers. Are some of my favorite things about football, when you think you know exactly what a team's going to do, and they also know you think you know what they're going to do. And they decide, flip the script on you. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. And Sark does it every time. I think Sark's going to do it in this game. I don't know how it's going to happen. We always theorize, but I think you'll see a tendency flipper, kind of a tendency breaker in this game.
100%. Well, and I think you got to create that tendency, especially CJ in the Oregon comparison or parallel, that Dylan Gabriel is a new quarterback, so he's new to that system. So Ohio State's only watching Dylan Gabriel in Oregon, really, and they're never going deep on these 3rd and 9s, and they're running certain plays, and then they run something that looks just like what they normally run, but then Tez Johnson over the top, see ya, that they hadn't shown. That's awesome. Texas did it against Oklahoma, where they were struggling in that first quarter. That Michael Taft blitz off the right side, they hadn't shown that all year. Here comes Michael Taft, perfectly timed off the right side. That was a huge play in the game where it took field position, 20 yards back and kind of let everybody in the Texas side relax a little bit. That play really stemmed the tide, flipped the field position, and that had not been put on film so far.
No, not at all. And you can even look to Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons off the edge on the same snap, right? We've seen them on the field together. We've seen them blitz together, but never lined up as your true defensive ends off the left and the right tackle. And what happened on that play? They both beat their tackle. God, there's no time there for Michael Hawkins. Anthony Hill ended up with a sack, but if it was a split second longer, even, if it was a deeper drop for Michael Hawkins, it's a Colin Simmons sack all the way. I think he actually beat Hill to the quarterback just a step above where he was. And then we saw Vernon Broughton out wide as a 5-tech blitzing the quarterback. He ended up getting a sack, and that was with Trey Moore and Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons interchangeably kind of fitting up right next to, the B gap. So they're kind of digging into their bag a little deeper than what we've seen so far. And of course, in a game like Georgia, you're going to hold back no punches. You're going to say anything that we can to show them something we haven't shown before. It's coming. And I thought that Oklahoma and Georgia would be the start of seeing the linebacker blitz, some different packages for Anthony Hill to get up after the quarterback. He's had sack numbers, but a lot of them have been cleanup duty with the quarterback rolling up, stepping up in the pocket, kind of rolling out, and his speed just gets there before a quarterback can make a decision. Now we're seeing him tasked with being, all right, pin your ears back on the snap, go get the quarterback, and it's working pretty darn well. Player of the week nationally. I'd say they do it again this weekend.
Yeah, PK and Johnny Nansen, it's almost like they break the tendency see every week and show you something, right? It's like, they broke out the NASCAR dime for Colorado State. I'm like, why the hell we do that against Colorado State? That wasn't necessary, but it was cool. I love the NASCAR dime package. It's great. And then against Mississippi State, I believe, was that the first time we started to see them? Remember they put the edges in the B gap, CJ?
Yeah.
So to see them put the edges in the B gap, that was a little funny. And then against Michigan, one of the things they threw out there, they ran the bear front, they ran that penny front at times in that Michigan game. I mean, honestly, probably 4 out of the 6 games, PK and Johnny Nansen have just thrown something new out there that you just did. We've seen the inverted Tampa 2 coverage, something that they had not put on film last season. So you're right. I mean, CJ, they're continuously evolving, and I think you see something new from that defense definitely weekly in SEC play. It feels like something specific to whatever the threat is the opponent brings. Well,
I can't wait to continue to break down some Georgia film, because I really went into the all last week. I kept saying Trey Wisner as kind of my player pick to click, and the guy that I felt like, I don't know, just watching him in that second half against Mississippi State when they needed it, and Jaden Blue had been sat down and he sees his opportunity. I'm trying to figure out who that's going to be against Georgia. Maybe it's Wisner. I don't know. What do you guys think about that running rotation? Is Wisner earned enough that where we know we went into the fall camp with C.J. Baxter as the lead back, Jaden Blue complimentary? Or is Wisner earned enough credit to say, you know what, let's go back to that. Let's go Wisner to set it up. He's got a better feel for the run game. He's more patient with it. Because it feels like to me, Jaden Blue, he's like on the video games you guys play, CJ, where he's got one speed. Like he's going to get the ball and you're going to hit the whatever the button is that goes fast. And whereas Wisner is a little more Le'Veon Bell to him, that he'll wait for it. He'll wait for that play to develop, and then he'll go. And maybe you could accomplish the same thing you were talking about with C.J. Baxter, where you set it up with Wisner and then bring the home run hitter with Jaden Blue. Is there some thought to that being a smart direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Patrick Page puts it pretty well here in the comments. He sets up his blocks very well. Yep. Jonathan Brooks did it very well as a year ago. But when you watch Trey, there's something about his vision, his patience, his decision making, and when he wants to burst through a hole that you don't see with other running backs right now. Of course, Jarrett Gibson, a young running back, it's tough to get the ball and to let blocks set up, because you want to get the ball and you understand the speed of the game. You want to say, I got to go. Jaden Blue, on the other hand, he's got that one speed where he gets the ball, and that's kind of the speed that you get, whether it's warranted or not. He's going to be going faster than everybody else on the field, which is great. But when you're running inside zone and when you're running a counter, when you're running power, you got to let these blocks set up in front of you. And I think, again, that's the best part of the Trey Wisner game right now. That second touchdown run or second lengthy run, the one that he ended up scoring on, that's not a touchdown unless you go back and you watch his patience. And then you see the cutback lane where he comes all the way back across. He lets the two pulling guys kind of create a log for him. So he goes on the opposite side of the log. He's got free room and he makes a move in space and he's gone, right? That's you call it experience with a lot of running backs that kind of see things in front of him. He doesn't have a lot of experience. Let's not forget that. This feels instinctual for Trey Wisner. So I think it's a two-way go, right? I love what Trey's doing in the running game. I think you give him 15 carries a game moving forward. I think if you give 10, 12 touches for Jaden Blue, half of them need to be out of the backfield. And you're not ever going to lose that running threat with Jaden Blue because of how quick and how talented that he is. But when you look at what his best traits are, Jaden Blue is not that guy that's going to find a lot of success in between the tackles. You see his big playability when he has the ball in space. He can kind of give you a head nod, and before you even realize where you're at on the field, he's already by you. That's his biggest strength, and I think you're going to continue seeing those screen passes, those wheel routes. You might even see him lined up outside in like a 5-out look on a cornerback or a linebacker. If they ever put a linebacker on Jaden Blue Rod in there, and I'm hooking that thing deep. And I don't think that there's not a linebacker in the country with the speed that can keep up with Jaden Blue. So I think that's something, if you ever look at tendency breakers, that could be one as well.
Rod, pony package. Bring the pony package back.
Yeah, you're good. I think they actually used it a little bit versus Oklahoma, but they should bring it back sparingly with those two, Trey Wisner, considering what Trey Wisner has done. And it's about compatibility in the run game. they tried. Sark was troubleshooting early on. Once he found out Quinn didn't have it, he was troubleshooting in that run game early on. You go look at the first 3 rush plays they had by the running back design runs. 2 of the first 3, they're pulling offensive linemen. They're trying some different things, trying to get to the edge. Oklahoma was well keyed in on those pulling offensive linemen, so they went to that split flow zone blocking, that split flow wide zone. And it hit, and it's perfect for Trey because of his vision and patience. Jaden Blue couldn't really pop it because he wouldn't wait for those blocks to align, and it's hard. I was talking to Jeremy Hills and Fozzie Whitaker about it. They were like, "Man, it's tough to wait for that those blocks to align. You're sitting there and you're trying to have patient feet, and you're waiting for everything to kind of open up for you as a running back. And sometimes you get impatient." And then you end up, you get up getting 4 or 5 yards. But if you really want to pop those runs, you got to be patient and wait for the right time. And on that 36-yard one, the run to Trey fumbles, the 43-yard one where he actually ends up scoring, whatever it was, those are the same run concepts.
Yep.
He runs them differently, though. He pops one to the outside, actually gets to the edge on the first one. And the second one, and like CJ says, he cut it back. So he was perfectly compatible with that running game strategy against Oklahoma. And by the way, guys, they only had 3 runs where they popped for over 10 yards versus Oklahoma for running back runs. They had the Wingo in and around too. Only 3 running back runs, guys, and they were all the same concept, that split flow, split zone concept. And Jaden Blue had one of them, but he couldn't pop them like Trey. So I just think it's about what you want to run that day against that opponent. What are they? How can they be exposed? And Jaden Blue sometimes is going to be a better fit for how you want to pop it, and sometimes it'll be Trey. But there's no doubt Trey Wisner needs more touches, more rushes. I think more.
With Monin not expected to play for Georgia, that's again their middle linebacker. He's been dinged up a few weeks, not expected to return this week. How do you go about attacking the middle of the field there? Georgia's of course going to have talent. They've recruited well. Linebacker probably not ever going to be an issue for them, but there's going to be that drop-off from your starting guy to your second-string guy. How do you go about attacking that? Is it a big Gunnar Helm day? Is it something that you can exploit in the duo or the split zone as we've been talking about? Is there anything specifically that you remember that kind of posed some issues for you back in the day when you had maybe a deficiency at the linebacker spot?
I think what I would do, y'all remember that play that they kept running with Jaden Blue? I think they ran in the Washington game, and they kept trying to run in the spring game. They actually scored on it in the spring game. They call that Texas route. Comes out like he's about to run a wheel route, and then cuts it back inside like a slant. Oh, dude, I would run that on those linebackers all day, every day. That's a beautiful route. And I do that with some combination of pretty much triangulate him and Gunnar Helm in some with some route combination. Because I'm with you. I mean, basically challenging those linebackers that way. Because I'm with you. I think Texas can make a lot of plays against inexperienced linebackers, occupying their eyes with different. And that's why I think a lot of misdirection in the backfield. The split flow works really well for over pursuing linebackers, which is what you got a lot from Oklahoma. Also I'd go empty. I know it's one of my favorite things. I always say I'd go empty. I'd go empty against anybody, but Alabama whipped Georgia on empty formation early in that game, and they're gonna have one of their linebackers out. Get those linebackers on the field, first of all, and you can do it with the pony package, or you can do it with 12 personnel. Get them out there, spread them out, make sure Jaden Blue is out there because he's one of your wide receivers, like CJ said, and then put Gunnar Helm out there, put those guys in the slot, and let them work on those linebackers. Or put one of your wide receivers at the number 3 and see if they got a linebacker or a safety matched up on them. Put Jaden Blue out there on the edge, see if that linebacker follows him out there to number 1. If he does, that's the one we're going to attack. So empty might be a way to attack those linebackers too.
I like that a lot. All that's good, especially the idea that Gunnar Helm, Kirby sees it, Will Muschamp sees it against Michigan, against OU. Gunnar Helm becomes such a reliable go-to for Quinn Ewers. Those linebackers are going to be told all week, hey, watch Helm, watch Helm, watch Helm. That running back underneath that or coming off of that, really, as I like how you said that, Rod, make the linebacker is going to be trained to think about Gunnar Helm in that moment. Bring a running back behind that. I mean, that's going to be hard for them to defend, especially a Jaden Blue and any of those guys. Hey, before we get to super chats, Rod, tell them about Duck Camp and all the great people and all the gear you've got with Duck Camp. Bringing it strong, my friend.
Appreciate that. Appreciate our friends over at Duck Camp, right? Duckcamp.com. That's where you want to go, folks. Duck Camp produces premium outdoor goods for the outdoor spirit in all of us. Duck Camp is dedicated to providing the best outdoor goods so you get outdoor good, whether you're an avid hunter or you're a fisherman, or like me, you prefer the camaraderie of the campsite or the camaraderie of the campfire, whatever it is for you. Duck Camp is a brand that understands the culture of outdoor living and the good times and good friends that come along with living an outdoor lifestyle. So check them out today, duckcamp.com. Check out their fall selection. I've already ordered a couple of items from their new fall selection. I encourage you to do the same, but hurry up because they might sell out because it's some pretty popular stuff and they got some great stuff over there at duckcamp.com.
Yeah, deer season around the corner, and Christmas is coming. Holidays are right around the corner, my friends. Hey, let's get some super chats. Matthew's been harvesting them. Let's go. Love this channel. Love this year. Hook 'em horns. Thank you, Horton.
Thanks,
man, that's a great. Look at that dog. Look at that big old dog. That's great.
Thanks,
Look at that dog on there. I love that
That's
avatar. That's pretty cool.
dog.
Thank you, Horton. That's cool. All right, Jerry's Jack Links. What's up, fellas? On the morning show every day. Never get to give you all a shout. Appreciate y'all. OU sucks. Wisner about to break out. I like it.
I love it. Thank you very much.
Here we go. For Leona, love that kid. Real linebacker. When he's on the field, you know he's there. Well, guys, when's the last time the Longhorns, Rod, you've been following, you played on the Texas defense and have been following it a long time. When did the last time the Longhorns had linebackers of this caliber? Which I want to ask you before we get to this, Rod. What are you seeing from LaFau? Seems to have better instincts than Benda. I mean, finding linebackers for the previous staffs has been a very difficult thing. State of Texas, the best players rush the quarterback, right? So it's hard to find those natural. I mean, maybe it's back to Derek Johnson and gosh, who was the kid from Ohio that came in that's still playing in the NFL?
Oh, yes. Yeah, you're right. Played in the league forever. Jordan Hicks.
Yeah. Jordan Hicks.
Great. Yes, he was awesome. God,
when's the last time the Longhorns had linebackers like this that are like they're true linebackers, like Anthony Hill? Remember back in the beginning at the CJ, you were there when they had the coordinators available, and Pete Wachowski said he tells Anthony all the time, man, you're really good, but you're not. You got a lot to learn at linebacker. We're have to teach you some to play linebacker. But it feels like those two together are really working well. Benda as a sixth-year player. The Longhorns haven't had linebackers like this in a long time.
No,
I love that.
Real quick, I mean, the staff knew right away in spring ball because that linebacker room, there's not a lot of bodies there, but it's a lot of capable players. And this is even after Kendrick Blackshear departed from the program, when Samaje Burrell departed from the program. You looked at it and said, oh, I mean, they just lost two linebackers. The portal period is still open. They might go get a grad transfer, a guy like they had to do for running back with Velton Gardner. And they said, no, we're cool. You know, we trust what we got in Ty Anthony Smith. Mo Blackwell's a more than serviceable player for us right now. David Benda is going to step up. We like the development of Leon LaFau, and Anthony Hill's a damn near an all-American right now. And I think that you were feeling it, Rod, that they knew something that we didn't, and that was this linebacking room is really talented. Even with some of that numbers not stacking up to an offensive line or an edge room, they're like, hey, we're going to roll with what we got, and we're going to roll, and we're going to do really well with it. And so far, hey, they're showing us.
Yeah. Hey, you're going to hold the Hicks is 32. No, I agree. And by the way, I'll give CJ a lot of props. CJ has been talking about Leon LaFau for a long time. I remember saying, no, he's my guy. I think he's going to be the linebacker that ascends in this group. So we got to give CJ a lot of credit for that. But yeah, it is his instincts that pops off. He's so decisive. Like there's no indecision in his game, man. You can tell. Like remember that play he made against Oklahoma, the tackle for loss that he had. They had that two back set they were running in the backfield and kind of running like that kind of an off tackle play there. And he literally comes down. I mean, there was no hit. I almost wonder what he read in that moment, what he was reading. I thought he was blitzing. I still want to ask you, were you blitzing? Because he just went straight downhill, like as soon as the ball was snapped. And I thought to myself, dude, the instincts of his, and I think what he had been doing, CJ, because they had been running that play with that concept, you know, they had been running it a few times, and I think he just diagnosed it. He was like, no, I got it. I know, I already figured it out. When I watched them in this movement, with this action, in this formation, I know exactly.
It's like the safety play, Rod. He just
went. He just went. He believed his eyes, his film study, and that's what I love about this game. There is no indecision, man. He's a downhill linebacker, is what Jerry describes him as. He comes downhill on you.
I like it.
Well, and that's you've always described Jade Barron like that, Rod. That film study, instincts, talent all come together, and you just trust it. Now, George is going to see that, and they're going to, when 18's on the field, they're going to try to run something to get him coming hard, right? And go right back over the top of him, are they not?
Yep. I always say, I don't know why people don't. Back in the day, I would double move Janae Barron. I love him, but I would double move him, hitch and go him, stalk block and go. He's so damn aggressive, and he's so confident in what he sees. You need to make that work against him. So that's no doubt. They will actually. George is going to do double moves, by the way. They're going to do double. Sark even said it. When he was talking about it, he was like, the double moves, when you're watching them Georgia film, the double moves kind of stand out. They throw their share of them. And they'll show them against that because Texas is so aggressive. It only makes sense.
Yeah, only makes sense. All right. Many more super chats, Matt. We also, here we go. When is CJ going to realize Peyton Yeager?
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
Man, I've been hearing from my mom enough.
Bro, is she single? She's a hottie.
I don't know.
Who is this person?
She's on Dallas. She's in Dallas, right? She's on the news in Dallas, right, CJ?
As far as I know, yep.
Oh, CJ, you don't know.
We'll make this happen. We'll make it happen.
Play it cool, CJ. Play it cool.
Come on.
As far as I know, yeah, she's on Fox 4 in Dallas, I think.
They had her. She did a great job on Coffee and Football the other day. So.
Oh, okay. That's what's going on.
Hey, TJ, if they're saying that's your soulmate, that could be worse, brother.
I agree. I certainly agree.
That could be worse.
Oh, that's great.
Hey, Rod, tell them about hold on. What's up, fellas? CJ, how good of a prospect is Chris Stewart has to be there skill set wise for Sark to take a commitment this early?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you answered your own question there, right? You know, you don't see Sarkisian take wide receivers this early if they're not super talented or have a very high ceiling. And Chris Stewart, a guy probably right now 11-1, 11 flat in the 100. I think you see him eventually grow into a 10-6, 10-7 guy. That's a heck of a football player at wide receiver at Shadow Creek. He's getting tested against some of the best Houston area defensive backs week in and week out. So I like him. You watch him with the ball in his hands, and he can go, right? He can cut on a dime. He can make you juke immediately. Mom, I know that's not your super chat, but I've been getting a super text all week. So, but no, Chris Stewart, heck of a football player. So really good ad early on in this 26 class.
Right. Tell them about Carrot Concierge, which Miss Vogel's going to love for Christmas time. I can tell you that right now. I love this idea. Whenever I hear Carrot Concierge, I was like, that's a great idea. Go and tell them about it, Rod.
It is actually, no joke. I actually am looking them up for my wife's birthday, which is coming up. So I got to get on it. All right. Carrot Concierge. So no doubt. I'm not only someone reading the live, but I'm also a client. So check it out for yourself. The Carrot Concierge. If you're looking for the right gift for the woman in your life, make sure you check out the carrotconcierge.com. Jody Reynolds is a personal jeweler. She is the Carrot Concierge with an office right there in Westlake. Jody focuses on helping men and women, of course, but mostly guys, purchase the special gift for that special person in your life. You can use the QR code on the screen to see even more, or visit her on Instagram or her website, thecarrotconcierge.com as well. Jody prides herself in providing personal service. She takes that extra step to make sure your lady gets exactly what she wants, and because she doesn't have the overhead of a storefront, she often can get the highest quality inventory at the lowest prices available, as much as 30% less than what you see at a traditional jewelry store. So check her out for yourself. If you're looking for something special, birthdays or an anniversary, you got Christmas right around the corner as well. Jody has a variety of tennis bracelets, rings, necklaces, and more, all beautiful jewelry, all personalized for you and yours. Check out thecarrotconcierge.com. Visit her website or give her a call or text and take care of that very special person in your life. Best thing about it, you can make it special for you, right? Very, very specific to whatever your needs are or whatever the preferences are of that special person in your life. So thank you very much to thecarrotconcierge.com.
And we like that, Rod. Convenience.
Oh, yes.
That's
exactly right. That's exactly right. That's what men are about. Convenience.
Convenient level. I love this. Saw some UGA. You got arrested again.
Well said.
Hey,
yeah,
UGA. Good sign. Hey, by the way, hey, Jerry Jacklinks, good job. That could be a great sign for game day.
That
you can't spell UGA without you got arrested. You know what I mean?
I like that. That is good.
You can't spell you got arrested without UGA.
UGA. There you go.
There we go.
That's it. There you go. I like that.
That's the one.
That's the one.
Ella, do you think Texas beats Georgia? This is an upset win because of the aura of the Georgia program? No.
You're number one. You're playing at home. Answer's no. It is, again, it's one of those not program defining, but it's another one of those big steps on the run. Going to Alabama and winning that game was big. Making the playoff was big. Reestablishing yourself as the undisputed best team in the country, big step going into the second half of the season. Texas would love to win this one, but it's not an upset, especially when you're favored by 3 at home.
Favored by 3 at home.
Yeah, I was very disappointed. I know, Rod, you have kinfolk in the Bayou. I was very disappointed to see LSU charging the field after beating a 2-loss Ole Miss team.
What are we doing? No, that's a generational thing, though, E. We were talking about that when Texas played Bama at home. Remember we were having that discussion? And
yes.
A lot of the younger generation of fans were saying, no, we want to rush the field. And they just want to rush the field. They're not about the significance of it and the magnitude. And about the Texas as a blue blood should never rush the field because we expect to win big games.
You know what, Rod? We as their elders have to train them. We as our elders have to train them. You know what I mean? Hey, you're LSU. You have a national championship in the last 5 years. You have 2 Heisman winners. You're at home. You beat Ole Miss, your little brother. Like, you do not charge the field. I mean, come on now.
You never rush the field. You can never rush it. You never rush it.
Game. It's a great finish. Did our win percentage go up or down for the Florida game with DJ Lagway finishing the season?
It's a good question.
Yeah, probably down. Rod, you've seen DJ Lagway. I've seen him play in college, but you saw him play in high school.
Yeah, no, he's a heck of a talent. I think it might go up. It might actually just stay the same, right? With DJ, you're going to see the higher chance for big plays, but you're also going to see the more turnover-worthy plays pop up in this game if he's the quarterback. That was one thing Graham Mertz was great at. He only had 3 interceptions a year ago. I think 22 touchdowns, 3 picks. His completion percentage was very high. The issue with that, Rod, and we talked about this in the past, he just didn't do anything super spectacular. I think with DJ Lagway, you could certainly see the spectacular, but you're also going to see the more turnover-worthy plays. It just depends on which Lagway do you see. On the road against the number 1 team in the country as a true freshman, maybe that helps Texas in that regard, but at the same time, I think it's a higher ceiling, lower floor. So somewhere in the middle, you're going to find some sort of line movement or percentage movement. I just don't know which way it's going to go.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's good stuff. I did see, by the way, guys, that before we went on 6 o'clock today, ESPN had a kind of a preview mock what's going to happen when the college football playoff rankings come out later in the month, right? And they just used the AP poll for how the bracket would set up. And the way they had it, they had Texas number 1, and they would play the winner of the 10-7 at that point, which would be, they had it as Alabama LSU in a 10-7 matchup.
I'll take that.
Which would be interesting, right? You'd get Bama or LSU, and then the winner would get in the semifinal round. You'd get it was Iowa State, who they had as the 4 seed out of the Big 12. Yeah, versus and then you get like Iowa State. I mean, that's a pretty good run. You know, you'd absolutely take that. Obviously, you have to play the SEC championship game at some point, or between all of that.
That'd be awesome.
Team we're not even talking about. This is so much fun, guys. So much fun on a Tuesday. Very excited about what's coming this weekend. Georgia coming to town. Everybody's fired up. The city's fired up, and Longhorns are favored. It's the first time Georgia has been an underdog in a regular season game since 2001.
Wow.
Since 2001. I mean, they haven't lost, but they have not been an underdog going into a game since 2001. And you wonder how that line moves as the week goes on. It's at 3.5. But it'll be interesting to see where the money comes in on this side of the deal, because Georgia is rarely an underdog. But it's going to be a fun week. Gentlemen, you got a busy week, so let's get some rest. Everybody lock in on a Tuesday night. I know you'll on Texas football be back tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock with all the latest on coffee and football. CJ, you're covering it and locking it in on the busiest recruiting weekend of all time, as we talked about off the top of the show. So many recruits coming in. It's going to be incredible. Guys, have a great week, and I can't wait for Saturday.
You said it best.
Hook 'em.